Hey everybody, I'm Kareem and welcome back to another episode of I Read What I Read. So let me ask you a question. How do you pick the books that you like to read? What things shape your decision? As I developed this podcast, this has been one of the burning questions that I think about in terms of what I choose to read and then what I see people talking about online as far as what they read. I'm always fascinated to see both the recommendations people make and then how people are influenced. On Facebook, I'm in this one group, and it is basically a group for Black women readers. And there's always books coming through. And I've gotten some great recommendations out of it, but a lot of the times I'm kind of just following to see what people say about the book, the commentary, and about what the book may discuss and what it may bring up. But I have no intentions of reading the book. I think that there are things that drive our decision, whether consciously or not. And I just want to discuss that today. For me, I've gone through cycles, different type of cycles in my life, as a reader. At one point, all that I read was Christian books, Christian Bible studies, books by Christian authors that, dealt with Christian topics, discipleship, things like that. There was also a time when I read books exclusively by Black authors. I feel like every Black person goes through that cycle. And for some Black people, that's where they stay. They only want to read Black authors. It may not matter the genre, but they only want to read books authored by Black people. And I get that. It's a way to support authorship in, underrepresented, communities. Now, I can imagine that there are readers in every race or ethnicity that kind of do the same thing. You feel like you want to read from someone who shares your perspective. You want to read from someone who may know where you're coming from, understand the cultural aspects, all those things. But as time has gone on, I've moved away from that silo thinking. I've moved away from thinking or participating in this I only read scenario. More so than anything, I want to read a book that I know that I can give it the energy it deserves. When I get into a book, I get into it. I go into that space. I go into that place. I let the book take me there. So I kind of pick it on based on the vibe, if you will. I kind of like, am I vibing with this book? And yes, I have specific genres that I enjoy. So it does kind of have to tick that box. It has to be in a genre that I enjoy. I don't care who wrote it. I'm not reading romance. I just am not into that genre at all in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Now, don't get me wrong. I will read books that have romantic relationships in it. That's kind of inescapable in fiction. But the actual category, I do not pick up romance novels. I'm not into it at all. Same thing for like spy and war. Some historical fiction or nonfiction. That's just not where I find my pleasure in reading. Have I read those books? Yes. Have I read them as part of book clubs? Yep, absolutely. I've read, books that, again, span different genres. But now I really do read what I want to read. I will look at some suggestions that I may see online, but I am not compelled to read any book by any particular author for any reason other than I want to. Case in point, I was at the thrift store. I saw these two books. Both of them look very interesting. The one called The Other Einstein, I went to that book several times. I held it. I flipped through the pages. I read the description. And I actually had a real talk with myself in the aisle, like, do I want to read this book? And the answer was yes, kinda. It wasn't enough to make me want to buy it, right? But for both of them, despite the fact that they piqued my interest, as I looked at them and I held them, I was like, there's so many other books that I actually want to read. And that doesn't even count the fact that I'm doing my Summer on Nantucket series. But there's so many other books that I didn't have to think twice about whether I want to read them. And I think that's really my gauge. If I hold the book long enough and I don't feel like, it passes the vibe check, like, oh yeah, I really want to get this, I'm going to put it back. I don't care, what other things that may be like, oh, everybody's been recommending it, or, oh, I saw this online, da. I have to want it, right? I have to want it. I love that form of freedom in reading. I think that reading is one of the places you can have the most freedom in what you do, in your choices, and how you read and what you read. It is like the world is truly your oyster. And I love that there are, book talkers and booktubers and all those things who are specializing in certain genres and make awesome recommendations. I really, really do. And I hope that by watching this show, either now or in the future, you may enjoy some of the recommendations that I make. But I never have an expectation of any reader. I really would like to just hear why you like a book. I really like to explore what that book did for you, what that book does for you. And a big gauge for me is, would you reread it? Because there are several books that I have reread and enjoyed it just as much on the second time around that I did the first. And I think that's a marking of a great book. But there are so many things that can influence us. And again, these days we have more than ever people telling us what they read, why they think people should read it. Honestly, I don't know how people read all the books that they might read. Like I said, I'm kind of slowing down in my old age. So that's another reason why I have to make sure I'm going to give the book the energy it deserves. And when you look at my little book bench back here, all of these were selected solely on being in the thrift store, looking at the back jacket or the inside flap and saying, yup, it checks a box. Most of these authors I had never heard of, with the exception of Tom Hanks. I mean, who hasn't heard of Tom Hanks? This book I got on my first visit to Martha's Vineyard at a thrift store. And I was like, oh, absolutely, I'm going to get this book because it's in Martha's Vineyard. It was cheap. I think it was like less than $5. And I'm like, absolutely. It looks vintage. It looks old, 100%. So I got it because, again, my love affair with the vineyard. I have some Ellen Hildebrand books over there that I've already talked about in a previous episode. I have the Pamela Kelly books that are going to kind of go with those Ellen Hildebrand books when I'm, doing my summer and then tuck it. But the other ones are authors I have never heard of. And again, just by standing there, picking up the book, reading enough of it, like, oh, it looks interesting. The more I pay attention to online platforms and looking at people talking about what they read and why they read it, it's just interesting to me about the trends, so to speak. This may be a little controversial, but I do not think that one race should just read, here, Black people, only Black authors. And this has nothing to do about not supporting those people. And this is clearly with the understanding that, Black authors don't always get the platforms that other races, read white, get. I get it. I got it. It's overstood. But I do think there are people out there who are so staunch with this rule that they're really missing out on some great writing from other ethnicities or other races. I think another thing has to do with women readers usually read books by women authors. And I don't know enough of a population of male readers to know if they skew toward male authors, but I feel pretty confident in saying they probably do. Once again, when you read an author of your same gender, it goes back to all the things I mentioned earlier. You feel comfortable with them. You feel like they can understand you. You feel like they can speak your language, so to speak. So you feel like they're going to handle whatever topic it is in your, genre of choice. They're going to handle it appropriately. And I think that's after getting over the first hurdle of, am I a reader? Do I even enjoy the act of reading? Because some people can't even cross that bridge. So forget about the nuances of what you read and how you read, which is something I'm going to get to in a minute. Some people just like, I don't even understand how you even like reading in and of itself. And I get that. I get that from those people. I really do. There are things that they feel like they need to do that really keep their brain active. But readers know. If you know, you know. Once you get through the choices that, shape your book selection, the next, I would say controversial, but that's not quite the word. The next big topic, if you will, is how you read. Now, I am no book snob, which means any way you get the information, any way you receive the words from the pages, the words that were written in a book is reading to me. I know listening to an audible is not physically reading. And if you make the distinction, I read the book, but I listened on Audible, that's fine. I kind of struggle still with that, with that distinction, because the listener actually got a better reading experience, I feel, especially if the author read their own book. Now, that's not always true. Some people who write a book, especially like I've been hearing a lot of mixed things about Brandy's new book, which I'm not going to read. But there are people who really like the book, and there are people who are like, nah, this is just terrible. And even though she read it in her own voice, they really didn't enjoy it. Now, with something like that, it's probably better to be a fan of that person. That said, not everyone enjoys an audiobook read by the actual author. Back to the original point. Whether you listen to it, whether you read it on your Kindle, whether you read it, on a tablet, like the Kindle app or the actual Kindle tablet itself, whether you read paperback or hard copy, I don't think it should make a difference. I feel like it's all reading. And I feel like everything else is really just semantics. And when people actually make it their business to be like, well, you didn't read it because you listened to it, I'm just like, well, first of all, who hurt you? Why is there so much anger and pain? I mean, what does it matter to you? Are you like the reading police, the book police? I don't get it. Like, do you own the space that only hard copy books are, when you read them and hold them, it qualifies as being read? There was a time in my life that I could not read a physical book. After experiencing a traumatic brain injury over 10 years ago, my reading shifted entirely to Audible. And when I got introduced to Audible, it reignited my love of books, because when that injury happened, I pretty much put aside reading. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I couldn't concentrate on the words on the pages. I couldn't read. I couldn't read the way I used to. After that happened, I couldn't read for a space of time until I got introduced to Audible. And then it was like, oh, well, this is amazing. And I went on to be an exclusive Audible reader. Okay. I read so many amazing books that actually impacted me much more deeply because I heard the person's voice. It's essentially like reading to your child. Reading to children at an early age is advised on educational levels, parenting levels. So listening to Audible is basically have someone read aloud to you. And I don't know about anybody else, but I get the visuals better and I actually remember the story sometimes better. So I love Audible reading. And also I get to do things while I'm listening to the book, and I usually am interacting with them. Now, for some, like my husband, that's not his choice. He can't listen to a book. He can listen to podcasts. He can listen to other type of audio things, but a book was just never his thing on Audible. So I know there are some people that it does not work for because you just drift and you need to either hold a tablet or a book. That's fine. But my biggest issue is people acting like it's not reading. Lest we forget, there are differently able people out there, those who are legally blind, those who are blind, completely blind, who also read and ingest words that were written on the book written on pages from different authors, and they feel their way through. How can you tell? Oh, and they probably also are very big users of audiobooks, either through Audible or some other kind of audiobook platform. How do you tell them that they're not reading? Who are we to say something like that? It just is ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. So that's my little rant. Read what you want to read. Don't expect people to always understand or enjoy it. Read it the way you want to read it. The whole premise of this podcast is to read what you want to read. And it's not I read what I read. It's I read what I read. And we know the famous saying, I said what I said. It's in that vein, but be free. Be free. New readers, established readers, vets, be free. Feel free. Never feel pressured to read something because the person may look like you or because they don't. Explore different genres. Don't nobody come up in here and tell me to do romance. It's not happening. But maybe you can get me with a spy and war, or maybe you can get me with some historical fiction. But again, don't try to get me with romance. It's just not going to happen. So explore different genres, explore different authors. As I said in my very first episode, reading Becky Chambers' Wayfarer series forever opened me up to reading the kind of sci-fi or speculative fiction that, has other life forms in them, because it's just the way she wrote was so enjoyable that it seemed normal. It seemed regular. It seemed like, oh yeah, this all makes sense. This is perfectly normal. So now it's time for you to chime in. What shapes your choices? Do you ever like a book, but you don't pick it up because you're just like, look, I don't have the headspace? How long is your DNF list, your did not finish list? Is it longer than your TBR, to be read list? Are you pretty much 10 toes down? I only read XYZ, this author, this genre, what have you, and why? If that's your stance, tell me why. I'd love to hear from you. So that's the show for today. Do come back for the next episode where I review Remarkably Bright Creatures, the book and the movie. While you're at it, if you like this kind of content, I would love it if you subscribe and help me build this platform as a newbie podcaster on YouTube, because it's not a traditional podcast where you're listening to it somewhere else, at least not now, at least not at this venue. I need all the support I can get to keep on going. Anytime someone comes up to you like, why are you reading that? Just look them dead in the face, be like, I read what I read, and then send them to the show. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.